I'm Raymond. You're watching RPadTV, and today's episode is all about Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew. With me today is Paul Semel, longtime video game journalist, who you can find at paulsemel.com. His website is in the video description below, but I will flash this ticker just in case you cannot figure out how to say Paul Semel, to write paulsemel.com in your web browser. Might be an issue for some people. So it's still a crazy week. Los Angeles is still on fire. Bob Uecker died. David Lynch died. There has to be a third. Who's it going to be? Any guesses? Leave your
no. They did announce the lineup of the benefit concert.
Yes, Chili Peppers,
Katy Perry, John Mayer,
Phineas and his
sister, whatever her name is.
Something eyelash.
I think there might be a second batch because they said that like they only had 24 slots, but then they're adding a second venue. So I think they're maybe adding more because there's a bunch of people that are not on that list that you would think would be there. You know, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, the Eagles.
So here's what I have so far. Phineas and his sister, Dave Matthews, John Mayer, Earth, Wind, and Fire, probably together, not sure about separately. Gracie Abrams, Green Day, Gwen Stefani, Jelly Roll, Joni Mitchell, which is very cool. Katy Perry, who you mentioned, Lady Gaga, Lil Baby, Pink, Chili Peppers, Rod Stewart, yes, Steven Stills, Stevie Nicks, Sting, and Tate McRae.
You're right. So you still need like Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre, I would think, would do something with him. I mean, there's a ton of people. There's no way you could ever have like everybody that should be there. But
that's an interesting question, though. When you hear who to you is the quintessential Los Angeles band, leave your choices in the comments section. For me, it's Chili Peppers. They're one of my favorites already.
The Doors would definitely be up there. Van Halen would be up there.
I mean, that are living and can play this concert.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people.
Yes.
But definitely like, you know, the Jackson Browne strikes me as LA. The Eagles are a big one, you know.
Yeah.
Motley Crue. I mean, like there's so many bands from like the that 80s scene, like Poison and Rat.
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
pretty much anyone that played at the Whiskey in the 80s.
Right.
Rat, Dokken.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're just, like, you know, if you're talking about people that got their start here, it's a huge list. And if you start to add all the people like Rod Stewart, who've just lived here for years, it gets exponentially bigger. So
Steven Stills, I don't know. I always think of him as Canadian. So
I think that they were. I think Crosby Stills. I think he's lived here since the 60s. Yeah. So you know,
so he's like Steve Martin. He's Canadian, but he's very much an Angelino.
Yeah. Well, Steve Martin like grew up here.
Did he?
I think
Martin Short then.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's also people you could make arguments for. Like you could say like Metallica should be there because they started in LA and 3/4. I mean. They formed here, but they're really more of a San Francisco band.
Didn't Cliff make them move to San Francisco?
Yeah, Cliff made them move to San Francisco.
So I'm not playing with you, ass clowns.
Yeah, he made them move to San Francisco, and that they've largely been there ever since. So
I mean,
but they ended up donating a $500 million. No, I was going to say $500 million, but like they ended up donating like $500,000 from their charitable foundation to the fund. So,
right.
Yeah. Got the shirt. So
nice.
Yeah.
So today's episode is all about Star Wars: The Skeleton Crew. And let us preface what we're about to say with the Rotten Tomatoes score. The critic score is 91%. This was taken a few hours ago. And the audience score is 81%. And for me, I'm not close to those numbers. So I'm curious about that. I don't know what you think about the series in general, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say. And for everyone watching, I'd love to hear what you thought about the Skeleton Crew. As always, let's start off with our blue sky sized review of Skeleton Crew. What do you got for me, Paul?
Okay, I got to go to what I wrote down and go to my radio voice. Though not without its flaws, Star Wars Skeleton Crew was still a fun space adventure in the vein of the Goonies and the first season of Stranger Things.
Ah, interesting.
Now you know I don't work in radio.
Hyped as Star Wars Goonies and featuring some incredible directors such as John Watts, the Daniels, Lee Isaac Chung, put Bryce Dallas Howard in there. I was psyched for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Sadly, it ended up only being okay for me, which is a shame. But let's kick things off on a positive note. Paul, what did you like about Skeleton Crew? What made you happy to watch it?
I thought it was an interesting story. There was a sort of this intriguing idea of why was this planet cutting itself off from other places and also cut off from other places.
Yeah.
I liked I loved the thing in the very beginning when like the kids are playing and like they're playing Jedi and it's like, oh, that's funny. I guess they would do that. Like you never sort of think about like people in a universe as like, doing that. It's like if you see somebody in a Marvel movie reading a Superman comic book, you're like, what? Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, this makes sense.
Absolutely.
I did. I also liked when, some of the other planets and places we got to see and whatnot. And it just wound up being kind of a fun, if lighthearted adventure.
Yeah, I liked the aspect of At Attin that you mentioned. Like, why is this planet secret? It's shrouded in mystery. Learning about a new thing, adding to the Star Wars lore, and going into it not knowing that's probably the most fun with Star Wars. I had a similar feeling in the Acolyte, even though that happened in the High Republic. I love the alien costumes. Most of them were practical. I think all of them were practical effects, actually. Except all but one costume I thought was really incredible. Brutus's costume I thought was bad. He was the Wolfman looking guy, and I'm like,
yeah,
I've seen better costumes on Hollywood Boulevard than that.
I always hate it in Star Wars when they do stuff like that. Like in the original, like in A New Hope, when there's like a guy that looks like the devil.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, or something like that. Like it's always really it's hard to do that well. Or like, or if like somebody looked like there's a guy in this one who looks like an owl. It was kind of like
woman,
like
sorry.
A woman. Sorry, misgendered them. Yeah, like that one. I was a little on the edge. It's like whenever it sort of taps into something in our world, I'm always a little kind of like, come on, you have creativity. You can make somebody look weirder. Right. You don't have to make like somebody who just looks like a guy with a chicken for a head.
But I mean, for the most part, though, I thought the costumes and especially the aliens were really impressive. I prefer practical effects just because it allows actors to move naturally, or as natural as it can be to have like a 20-pound prosthetic on your head.
Right.
But yeah, so I appreciated the look and feel. I love the pirates in Star Wars. I thought that was pretty cool. We'll look at our pirate gang here. I want to talk about later, especially that guy in the middle. But yeah, I like this. I like the pirates that Star Wars has, especially in Clone Wars and Rebels. The use of Hondo Ohnaka, who is a wonderful, wonderful character. So I was happy to see more of the space, and there would be space pirates too, if you think about what pirates do and how this half of this place is lawless. Especially
right. Well, we still have pirates on Earth, and
yes.
So
now, did you have a favorite episode of Skeleton Crew?
Not necessarily, but there were a couple that I liked. I liked the last one, with one exception, which we'll get into.
Okay.
And then I liked the one where they wound up on that planet and they end up sort of interacting with these little droid scarabs, and there's the giant crab,
right?
And KB has her medical emergency. Like
Right.
I thought that one was a good one.
Yeah, I actually love that episode, especially with the KB thing. Like, I didn't know that her, what did they call them? Not implants. There's another word they used, but I didn't know that was considered a disability for her. And when they played up that aspect of her character,
right? They never really talked about that in. I mean, like, obviously, when Luke got his hand cut off and got a prosthetic.
Right.
It was along the same line, but this was very different. This was something that was keeping her alive.
Or keeping her functional. Right. Because didn't she say like she wouldn't be able to walk or really move if her implants got too much moisture or gunk?
Right. But when she had the medical emergency, like this stuff is basically keeping her alive after some kind of accident. And they didn't really go, so that was kind of an interesting new aspect to things. But like I said, I like the beginning of the first episode when you have the kids being kids. Which is cool. Which kind of reminds me of something that the guys from South Park have talked out a couple times. Is some of their favorite moments from the show are when the kids are just being kids. Right. And like, they can't always do that because of the stories they want to tell. But like sometimes, like if you look back at like the episode where they got the Chinese weapons and they like hurt each other, and it was all anime, like that one, they said that's one of their favorite episodes because it's just kids being kids, like what kids would do if they got their hands on like nunchucks and stuff.
Right, like you see in the first two episodes, they're going to school, they're taking tests. Some kids are cutting school. They're, as you said, they're playing Jedi together. So, I enjoyed that aspect too.
Yeah, and what was also interesting is their childhood was much more like the childhood that you and I had, as opposed to what kids today had, because they were like going out on their bikes and hanging out in the neighborhood. Like that's what we used to do when I was a kid. Was like you would get on your bike and you'd go, and your parents didn't know where you were. They didn't have any way of reaching you, and but didn't really matter. Like nowadays, like parents get arrested for doing that. So
right. Well, I mean, At Attin is pretty much Planet Suburb.
Yes,
they had Planet Spa where they had these crab creatures.
Yeah. Which has always been like a fun criticism of Star Wars, which is that like each like planet is just sort of one thing.
Yeah, it's kind of specific. Yeah, there's not a lot of diversity in Star Wars planets, huh?
Yeah, like you go to a planet, it's like, oh, this is the forest planet, this is the ice planet, this is the gambling planet.
Yeah, it's like an entire planet of criminals. I'm like, I don't think that's how it would work.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they tried to make a continent of criminals with Australia. And that didn't work out so well, did it?
No.
Gave
that's
us
where we get that's where we get all our good-looking actors from, apparently now.
We started talking about the kids, and I don't know. What did you make of the kids? Did you both as characters, but also as actors? Did you have any favorites? Were there any you disliked? Child actors are hard for older people to enjoy at times. How was this for you?
Right. Well, as I mentioned, I liked KB. I thought her character was really, really interesting. She was, I think, of the four, my favorite, because she also was like the one who kind of had like the most sort of, she was the feistiest of them, and I thought she was like the most interesting one. I also liked Neil.
Yeah.
He kind of reminded me of Ned from the Spider-Man movies, like this sort of likable sidekick kind of guy.
Right.
And, and then of course, when I didn't even notice it in the first episode, but then somebody pointed out, like, I guess one of the big things out of the first episode was his hair, and you can see it there, the kind of like
that tough.
I mean, yeah, like there's just something so funny about seeing that on that head. Like it works, but it's also just, it looks like my dad's hair from like the 1970s, and like, but he was just really, really adorable, and like you know, I get why like people got annoyed by the kids, but I don't know. I was fine. I knew that was coming, and I kind of was like, okay, this is what we're gonna get, and I'm okay with it.
I liked two of the kids, and it's the same ones that you just mentioned. I enjoyed Neil's character and the kid that played Neil. I thought that was an interesting and fun performance. And it must be weird because, you know, it's a real child actor with all the CG capture stuff on his face.
Right.
So that can't be comfortable. So kudos to that kid for doing a good job with Neil. And as you mentioned, KB was to me as well the most interesting of the four. I can't remember the last time one of the main characters of our series had a disability. So I thought that was pretty cool to play that up. The other two kids, Whim, I thought he was going to be the main character of the four. Like if we're sticking with the Goonies analogy, I thought he was going to be the Mikey, but it was really more of an ensemble, and I'm glad it was because this kid bugged me. Not so much the actor, just the way he was written. I'm like, yeah, you're a whiny bitch. I get it. But I was hoping for more, and I did not get that. Fern, oh man.
I know you and Fern.
The
love is palpable.
I just thought she was, and I don't want to. I feel bad like criticizing the actor because we've seen what fans could do to child Star Wars actors, depending on whose story you believe. But
right,
like fan criticism may or may not have really fucked up Jake Lloyd, who played Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace. And I hope that doesn't happen to the girl that plays Fern, but I just didn't think she did a good job with the character. I think Carlos sent me a message that she was an over actor, which I agree with somewhat. I just think she was a bad actor in a lot of the series, especially in the finale where she had this face where I'm like, can someone get this girl some laxatives? Like, why is this expression stuck in her face the whole time? Carlos said, I'm glad they didn't hint that Whim was force sensitive or anything Jedi related. That would have been terrible if he ended up being that, like one of those stupid Star Wars broom kids that uses the force to do chores. But yeah, I did not like Fern. So the kids to me were 50-50. How did you guys feel?
How much of it was that you didn't like Fern the actor, and how much of it was that you didn't like Fern the character? Because I will say one thing in defense of the character is you kind of needed a character like that who's the stick in the mud in a group like that.
I agree. I mean, she added tension, the character.
Yeah. And then when you see her with her mom, it makes a lot of sense that she would
right.
You're like, oh, she's basically her mom.
Right.
And that made a lot of sense.
I mean, the character, I think, was written better than the actor performed her. Okay. But still, I don't think any of these characters were written outstandingly. So, which is a problem that we will delve into later. I liked I like the structure of the show, like the big broad points of the show. I thought those were written well and interesting. But when it comes to characterization, I thought it was lacking. Now, as I mentioned in my Blue Sky comments, this was hyped by a lot of people. I think Kathleen Kennedy included, as being Star Wars Goonies. Was it Star Wars Goonies for you, or is it just another generic kid show that happened to be in Star Wars?
I mean, it was in the sense that it's about a bunch of kids that go on an adventure that becomes sort of fantastical and is sort of out of their depth, but they manage to get through it anyway, in large part because they are kids and they do, they're sort of underestimated by the people involved. Right. As I mentioned earlier, I compared it a little bit to Stranger Things, which is very much the same kind of.
I like that analogy a lot better because for me, one of the things that made Goonies unique is that you had two sets of kids in two distinct age ranges. You had Mikey and his friends who were still in grade school, and then you had Thanos and his friends who were in high school at that point.
Right.
Was that before he became Thanos? Maybe that's what he did after he snapped himself.
I think Stand By Me just came into my head too. Is another one of those.
Yeah.
You know, like here's like, especially because it's a small group of kids and they're kind of out of their depth and whatnot, you know, going on kind of an adult adventure and whatnot.
See, one of the things that bothered me about these kids is that they live in Planet suburbs. They live a very sheltered, safe lifestyle.
Right.
Then all of a sudden they go on this completely insane adventure and none of them are freaking the fuck out. Like in Goonies, they find a bunch of bones like under the sewers and they're going crazy. Stand By Me too. Like, you know, there's a train. And I thought they should have been reacting crazier to seeing all these weird, dangerous and foreign things after living on Planet Suburb.
Yeah, but I think that Whim was kind of like, this is great. Like we're on a goddamn adventure. Like this is what I've wanted my whole life, you know? So I get why he wasn't freaking out. And Neil kind of just goes with whatever Whim likes. You know, he's the sidekick. You know, I think Fern was kind of freaked out, but like her way of reacting to it is like, no, we need to get back home and blah blah. You know, like she tried to be the authoritarian figure of the group because that's how she reacts to things.
I do want to
KB
point out,
is just kind of like, yeah, whatever, we're on an adventure.
Neil is a sidekick, except the sidekick scored when they go to Planet Dirty France. I don't know why it was Dirty France. Let's go with it. I did like this episode too. I thought it was a very acute and wholesome thing. And I think this was the episode directed by the Daniels from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that is very cool. Now, of course, it's not all about kids. We had a mixed feeling about them. You liked them a little bit more than I did, but even though we pretty much liked and disliked the same ones, but my dislike was stronger than yours. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's very fair.
Now let's talk about the main adult in the series, Jude Law. I hate that name. I'm like, what's your name? George Nanananawood? I'm like, it's fucking stupid. Played by Jude Law.
Well, he had like 8 different names. So
yeah. And he is a pirate who was also force sensitive. And we find out later he was a street urchin that was saved by a Jedi, but then the Jedi was killed in front of him. So he has trauma. So I thought he was interesting in that, even though he's definitely a pirate with trust issues, there were times where you can see he felt grateful to the Jedi that found him and still wanted to do the right thing, even though he was still in the middle of doing a bad thing.
Right.
I want to steal all your money, but I don't want to hurt the kids, you know? So I thought that was kind of interesting. What did you make of the character of Jude?
I thought he was an interesting villain. I thought he was an effective villain. Like, I think if you had somebody who was much more threatening to the kids, it would have changed the tone of the show.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like I never got the sense that he wanted to kill the kids or that he was going to kill the kids, but even though he made them think that,
right,
like that was just to keep them in line. The one thing I did sort of think is I wonder what would have happened if he didn't reveal himself to be a bad guy so early.
Is he really is villain too strong a word? Like, he's definitely the antagonist, but
he's the antagonist. Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it. But what if he hadn't revealed that right as early as he had?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like either to the audience or to the kids, you know, like what if it had been like a shocking turn at some point? I don't know. I don't know if that would have been better or not. So
I do see that point, but I do like that on Planet Spa when they're in the treasure room, that scene where the kids realize that this adult is not looking out for them, and you see how, you know, crushed they are by that. I thought that was very powerful.
Right.
So I like that was relatively early on. If they saved it for later, would it have been as impactful because you knew it was coming?
Or maybe if like Fern had thought it, and like Whim and Neil didn't, you know.
Right.
And then when it gets revealed, KB's like, yeah, of course he's a dick. What are you, fucking stupid?
So Carlos's favorite episode was also Zero Friends Again, directed by what's his face's daughter?
Right.
By Opie's daughter.
When I started reading that and I saw Zero Friends again, I thought he was referring to another South Park episode. And I was like, wait, what? Like, we're not talking about South Park. But okay.
Yes. But see, I thought again, it's like my whole problem with the series in general. I like the concept of Jod, even though his name is stupid. But I didn't like the execution. There's so much nuance you could have played with there, and they had enough episodes to do it. I don't think he was, and you certainly had an actor capable of bringing that out, but I don't think he was given the best material to work with to bring out that character. Because in the end, what was he? He was just like some not quite a Jedi who tried to scam a bunch of kids, you know? Whereas some people compared him to Kumail's character from Obi-Wan, where he wasn't even a Jedi. He was just using like magnets and stuff to like fake his powers. So some people were expecting that, but yeah, I wish they could have given more time for Jod's character to breathe, so you can learn more about his trauma of, you know, growing up as a street rat and getting saved by the Jedi. Like even a flashback would have been cool. And by the way, tangent, slight. Any guesses as to his Jedi savior was? All we know is that it was a woman, and she was killed in Order 66.
I don't think it's anybody that we know. Like, I think it's probably because I think they probably had to figure that out just to, you know, figure it out. And my guess is they probably just said it's some Jedi that we've never seen or heard of, and
right.
You know,
like one of the fan theories that I read that would have been interesting is that they thought Jod was one of the younglings that somehow escaped when Anakin killed all the kids, and that's why he's messed up. Not as likely.
Yeah, except that it becomes a thing of like how many of those kids actually escaped.
Right.
Because we know that Baby Yoda is.
Yeah,
Grogu escaped. How many more? Because it's like, you know, it's also like that whole thing about like, well, they said at one point the only Jedi left was Luke Skywalker, and then his sister, and then there's all these other ones that, you know, like the kid from the game, and like how many more actually escaped, and like, you know.
I'm gonna have to rearrange us for a second because
oh boy,
we have Mac. Mac Marshall is here. What's up, man?
I'm sorry I'm late, and I'm sorry for the stranger on the couch in the background.
Wait, oh, I thought it was
That's all good.
All right.
Yes.
Hey, did you kill my cam or?
No.
Oh, weird.
I did.
Okay.
All
right. Anyhow, sorry about that.
No worries.
I absolutely lost track of time. I looked up and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I literally checked Facebook and I saw you guys were live right now. I was like, "Oh."
Carlos had an alternate theory here, or maybe the Jedi that found him was a youngling or Padawan, and that's why his skills never developed. I don't think that's likely. I think his master just got killed, like when all the clones were hunting them. Let's take a step back because I just want to hear Mac's thoughts on this. I want to know what you thought about the kids.
What do I think about the kids? I don't know. I feel the show was like kind of more of a nope, but I've made it this far, so I might as well finish it.
And did you have a favorite or least favorite? I think I know who your least favorite was.
My favorite is KB. I think she was super cool and probably the best character of the whole show.
Oh, wow.
Fern, not my favorite. And to be honest, Whim also not my favorite because they just...
Wow. We are totally aligned on our thoughts.
And then the blue elephant kid, I don't remember his name.
Neil.
Yeah, he just seemed like replaceable.
I like Neil.
He did a good job serving his purposes, kind of like the barely capable kid, but like, but the other two, Fern and Whim, just bugged me.
Yeah. Now, Paul asked an interesting question. Was it Fern's character or Fern's actor that bothered you more? What was your case? There's your answer.
Look, like I don't want to pick on a kid actor. I mean, like it's a hard gig, but like I just feel like given Disney's net that they can cast, unintended, for like rounding up a bunch of like really good, capable child actors to pull this off. I feel like that was kind of a swing and a miss on this one.
And I do want to reiterate that she totally reminded me of Anna Klumsky from My Girl, but 1,000 times more annoying.
Yes.
But Anna Klumsky grew up to be an awesome adult actor who was wonderful in Veep.
I was going to say she was in Veep. You got me starting to watch that show. And
she also married an Asian dude. So yes, Asian man getting the white girl. Oh, wow. My fireworks. That was unintentional. Now, we talked about the kids. We talked about Jod. Let's talk about the minor characters. Mac, was there anyone that caught your eye or stood out for you?
The wolf character, the Wolfman character had a cool, 5 minutes of fame.
Right.
Like everybody was like, oh, like more space pirate Wolfman characters and less regular Star Wars. And everybody was like, yeah. And then he just died. So he didn't end up being as cool or tough as menacing as one would have liked to see a space pirate Wolfman be.
And he had a shitty costume. So
yeah, and I don't know, the other supporting character was just some of the other supporting pirate players, right? That were on, what was his name? Jod. There was the Samoan lady who just kind of seemed to jive off of what he said and listen to him. And then there was the older lady who kept kind of supporting him, even though when times were tough. So I thought those characters were just bit players and funny and did a good part doing their role. But I thought the parents were weak. I don't know, the show just didn't hit on a bunch of fronts for me.
How about you, Paul? Any of the minor characters stand out for you?
Well, SM-33, the pirate bot, even
robot.
though he was sort of like a cliche pirate, he looked like they just downloaded the pirates from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies into his database, and I thought he was fun.
Also played by the excellent Nick Frost, who
yes,
I'm a big fan of.
That's the only redeeming factor about that to me. It's just, at least they had a good character, VO actor behind it, because the whole talk like a pirate robot thing was just kind of.
But I did like how he almost seemed, as Paul said, he's almost like a Pirates of the Caribbean extra. But then they made him menacing, like the red robot from the black hole who scared the shit out of me as a kid. so I like how they flipped that back and forth. That was pretty cool.
Right. Speaking of voice actors, I also he didn't have a lot of time or anything to do, but I liked that the droid that controlled At Attin was Stephen Fry.
Oh, that's right.
Who was always really, really good. And there was one other character that I like. Again, wasn't much of a character, but it was sort of like the little barge captain who was a really little guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they've started doing that more in Star Wars, playing with the idea that not everybody is human sized.
Right.
And I don't just mean in the case of they always had Yoda and obviously Grogu, but you're just getting more of these characters that show that there's a lot more diversity in size out there. I kind of want them to go the other way. I kind of want to get them to do more sort of gigantic people, that are still not like Godzilla, the Zilla monster, but just really tall characters, the
Wookiee size or taller?
No. Do you remember in Rebels, they go out into the desert and they run into that really big guy who was voiced by Tom Baker from Doctor Who?
Oh yes, the Bindu.
Yeah, like
Oh,
that
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Like
I know what you're talking about.
like characters like that. Like characters that are like 15 feet tall and 25 feet tall and like
Wasn't he bigger?
know,
I thought he was Godzilla size.
he was like King Kong size.
He was large.
But he wasn't like a kaiju. That's my like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like he wasn't like you have like really big creatures, like obviously Return of the Jedi. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that are that size.
Okay, so
Right.
humanoid, but just
Yeah,
not.
well, sentient.
Like people that you
Sentient.
would find walking through the lobby at Men in Black.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, you don't see like when you go to like Mos Eisley spaceport, like you don't see some like 17-foot tall like alien walking around or a 25-foot tall alien walking around.
All the
Although
really
at
big aliens you've seen in Star Wars are all like weird tentacle monsters for some reason.
Maz Kanata's bar had pretty tall doors, so maybe that's where they go.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they had that one guy. There was like one guy who was sort of sitting down who looked like he could be really tall because he was sitting next to a humanoid lady who,
Yeah, he was a big boy.
and I think there's another one in Rise of Skywalker when they go into like some bar. There's like there's like a guy who looks like he's about 12 feet tall.
Uh-huh.
Some more like that. But I like that. That's one of the things I liked about that character is just, this idea of playing with scale like that. And like,
I did want to give a shout out to some of the other minor characters. Let's start with Wim's dad, who had this line in the finale that killed me. Is like when he asked his dad if he could do something, he's like, "I'm a level 7 data specialist or whatever."
Right.
It
When
made me,
dad can magically ride a BMX like harder than anybody else who's ever like been on a go bike or whatever they were called.
it made me think of this line from Veep where they're mocking a character and be like, "Daddy, I've never been less proud." Like,
Yeah.
would it be that? Farah, who plays Fern's mom, a lot of us know this woman's voice for being the voice of Friday, the AI in Iron Man's armor.
Oh,
So it's
right.
weird seeing her as a physical person.
Yeah, I did not get that at all.
And then in the pirates, if you look at that bald pirate in the middle, that is Gunter, who many of us, I guess ages 30 and up, will know Gunter when he was Urkel. So
Was
oh, that was him.
I totally thought that was, and I was like, nah, it's not.
did I
Okay.
do that?
I didn't know that was Julia White. And I looked at that and I was like,
wish
oh,
they
that
would've-
looks like Julia White. But I was like, that can't be Julia White.
By
Oh,
the way,
good.
if they would have slipped in a "Did I do that" somehow into this, that would have been the best fucking crossover ever.
And Carlos points out he is also the voice of Sonic. Yes.
All right.
But yeah, I'm glad Urkel is getting some.
And
work these
Taserface.
days.
Next time.
Taser. Oh, is that Taserface?
It
Oh,
looks
that's
like
awesome.
a taser face.
Taser face.
Excuse me, your name is Taserface. Oh, that's such a great line.
That whole bit from that movie is fantastic. Taser face.
Absolutely. I actually went down. You posted something on Facebook earlier, Mac, and I went through like a 30-minute rabbit hole of watching Spaceball clips.
Yeah. I don't know what was happening. I just poured my coffee. I did not think twice, and I just grabbed it and went, and then I literally did the hot scream. So
I didn't realize. I mean, I knew at the time, of course, but that movie's from 1987, and it still really holds up.
oh, it's great. It's
That's how
still
good
one
his
of my-
satire
it's-
is.
Again, prior to Deadpool, it was my favorite for years running.
And it made me think about Rick Moranis, who just quit acting so he could be with his family.
Yeah, his
And-
wife was dying of cancer, I think.
Yeah.
His wife stopped.
And that's amazing. Like,
Yep.
very, very cool. And with that note, let's talk about my latest giveaway. I am doing a giveaway on Patreon. The URL is in the video description, but also scrolling right there. I'm giving away 3 Steam codes. All you have to do is register and follow me on, or become a subscriber on my Patreon. You can subscribe for free and leave a comment on the post where I probably
But you
deleted
have to
it.
pay to comment.
No, you do not. You do not. I actually made an error. But yeah, you just go to Patreon, subscribe to my Patreon, leave a comment on the January 2025 Steam giveaway post, and you will have a chance to win one of 3 Steam codes that I'll be giving away at the end of the month. Now back to our show. We have a comment from Carlo. Oh, from Dan. Do you guys want more Skeleton Crew? We will address that at the very end of this episode, Mr. Thanos, but that is an interesting question. Yeah, looks like 2 out of 3 no's. I guess spoilers.
I just saw the picture for Thanos Heisenberg and I laughed.
That is a great picture. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about Skeleton Crew is that it was stacked with incredible directors. John Watts, who people know from the Spider-Man movies, the Daniels, there are 2 of them, from Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Jake Schreier from Beef, and who is also directing the upcoming Thunderbolts. And Lee Isaac Chung, who directed Minari, one of my favorite movies in the last 5 years. You have all this, you have a pretty decent cast, even though one of the kids really sucked.
I feel like
what went wrong? Go ahead, Mac.
I was gonna say, like, you have all the ingredients, or I'm sorry, you have a great chef, but like it doesn't matter when you don't have all the right ingredients, you know, like. So it seems to me like, I don't know if that's the right ingredients being like the right lineup of actors. To me, I still feel like the show just didn't know what it wanted to be. And like, how do you have a bunch of different, really talented directors at the helm of a show that kind of doesn't know what it is?
Fair enough. Did you think, was there anything specific that you thought was like, what was the missing ingredient for you?
I don't know, like a story I care about.
How about you, Paul? Where do you think?
Like, I didn't care about any of these characters the same way I cared about any of the characters from the first time I saw a Star Wars movie or TV show, up including some of the more recent ones, right? Like, I could say, like, the moment I saw the first episode of, what was the last series?
The Acolyte.
The Acolyte, I was like, fuck yeah, like, I'm in. This is it. And then, of course, that was canceled. But
yeah, I mean,
now
same here.
Like, I just don't feel like I cared about the characters in a way that made me, like, aside of knowing that we're going to talk about it, like, really want to keep watching the show.
And it made me question things because a lot of our friends really love this series. I flashed the Rotten Tomatoes score before, and it's doing really well. But for me, I enjoyed the Acolyte way. It's not even close.
No, exactly.
I enjoyed the Acolyte.
Now, if we were younger and more kidsy, would we have liked this show more?
Well, that's my question, because this did seem like a more youth-oriented show, and that's what I like. I'm surprised, Raymond, that you said that you knew a lot of people our age that liked it, because I could see it being divisive among older people because it is so youth-oriented.
Well, it depends also. A lot of the ones that liked it have kids.
One time in the show, so
like a lot of them enjoyed watching it with their kids.
Yeah. Okay.
We could see
it
that.
was, again, kid friendly. You can sit down and watch it after dinner or whatever kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
I get that part.
But for me, it doesn't matter if it's geared for kids or not. I like Stranger Things, Star Wars Rebels, which you can argue, especially the first season, was really geared toward a younger audience. That's still my favorite Star Wars anything of the last 20 years. So I don't think it was because it was geared towards kids is why I didn't like it. I didn't like it because of fur.
Then let me ask you a different question. Did you know it was going to be this youth oriented going in?
Yes, because of the whole Star Wars Goonies thing.
Okay, so Ray says yes. Okay, because that's what I was also wondering. Like, I knew going in, it's going to be sort of Goonies it's going to be youth oriented. And I was okay with that because I was prepared for it. And it kind of reminds me of because I read a lot of the Star Wars novels, and I don't just read the adult ones or the young adult ones. I also read the middle grade ones because they can be just as much fun. But when I read those, I'm like, I'm reading a book meant for kids. I can't really like get hung up on like if the language is a bit more simplistic or things are more spelled out or short or whatever. And I was wondering if maybe that was an issue for you guys, but it doesn't seem like it.
No,
I mean, it seems more like the show to me just didn't. I don't know. Like I asked myself, like, do I feel like this show helped further the Star Wars universe and franchise for me, or do I think it like just kind of made it less good? Like, and I feel like my answer to that lands far closer to makes it less good than I wanted out of this show. You know, you always want something for Star Wars to like really pique your interest or open a new door for you that you hadn't kind of thought about before or whatever. Like, it just didn't do any of that for me. I was just got so hung up on like the just weird storyline with kids.
Carlos has an interesting theory. He says, I feel like Disney wanted to make a Goonies sequel, but couldn't get anything off the ground. So they pitched it to Kathleen and she said they could do it. So they went for it.
Maybe.
Well, what's interesting about that comment is that it came out today that they are actually developing a Goonies sequel.
Yes.
And a Gremlins sequel.
Oh,
that's not what we need. We don't need Gremlins 4.
Yeah, we'll see. God, this is all bringing me back. We're talking about Spaceballs. I watched a podcast during lunch where Howie Mandel was the guest. So
I don't do a lot of stock stuff ever, and I never really have. But like every time, because I worked at a handful of public companies where it's like time to sell or buy stock or anything like that, we would always send around that clip from, I think it was like the second Gremlins movie where the smart gremlins, they're on the phone and they're basically just like yelling, buy, sell. Yeah. That's my inherent knowledge of how to do Wall Street.
Wasn't that how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. There's nothing beyond that.
Carlos does want a Gremlins 3. Wasn't there a 3?
I thought there were 3 already.
No, there was only 2. But there was a cartoon show. I think there's a couple different cartoons, including one recently.
So one of the things that some people liked was that Skeleton Crew served as a standalone series that didn't require any knowledge of course it helps, of other Star Wars lore.
No, and I
didn't really add anything either, though.
Yeah, the Acolyte kind of tried to do the same thing too. Right? It introduced you a whole bunch of new characters. I think there was, very limited tie-ins, but like, again, I don't know what it is. For me, the Acolyte as a new Star Wars show, like, did a much better job of, all of the above.
Yeah. I mean, it just, for me, it did a better job of entertaining.
Yeah.
But two of the theories that people had were that the gold that was being made in At Attin was how the First Order was funded and was the money for behind the somehow Palpatine returned. That didn't end up being the case. Because this was so pirate heavy, some people were expecting Hondo Ohnaka to show up, which that would have made me really, really, really happy and probably would have bumped my score up 10% on a scale.
How was that the character from
he was in Clone Wars and Rebels.
Clone Wars. Yeah.
Clone Wars, he was more evil, and Rebels, he just is like he's more of a scoundrel.
He's like a sidekick. Yeah, scoundrel sidekick.
He has a fun relationship with Ezra that I really enjoy.
Would you have wanted him to be like a major character in the show, or would have been just happy if he had shown up when they were in that pirate bar?
A good, cool cameo appearance would have been enough. If done right,
Yeah, I would have liked to see how I would have written it is that some of the gold that Jod stole made it off planet with the other pirates, but then the other pirates got taken away by the X-Wings, and then Hondo ended up with the gold. Like something like that would have made.
I did think it was cool at the end when the X-Wings showed up and just started shooting everything up.
That's what X-Wings do.
Yeah, that was great. Like with zero, like care about like what happens, like splash damage, collateral.
Yeah,
damage.
I was thinking that too.
Like, there's like 4 pilots that are like, let's just fuck shit up. Let's go.
It's like, oh, there are people there. We'll get them later.
Yeah, drop the plasma bomb.
They did not really seem to care about.
No, they're like they're going in hot from the moment they got there.
That was pretty rough. So, were there any changes that would have made you like Skeleton Crew more? For me, I think it needed better writing to flesh out the characters, especially Jod.
Yeah, and then like I was gonna say, I don't know if you guys talked about it earlier, but did you guys like Jude Law's performance?
I liked his performance. I just didn't think he was given the material to really make it shine.
You and I were talking about this on text the other day. I really do wish they would have let him kill Wim's dad, just for, like when he was holding a lightsaber to his throat. And then
I do not.
And then just look at Wim and be like, "This is your fault. You did this." Right? But like, I don't know.
I like that he was conflicted, that he was a thief, obviously, but he didn't want to hurt the kids.
Yeah.
And he still had that image of the Jedi that saved him in the back of his head, even though he was a thief and a pirate and a scoundrel. So I like that conflict, and I wish we could have seen more of that.
I'm trying to think like other characters he's played in other movies. What was the one where he was the spy? Melissa McCarthy was his like earpiece, and then
Right, I saw that. I don't even remember.
Statham was in it. God, what's that movie? It's Melissa McCarthy.
I know which one you're talking about.
I know what movie you mean.
And his character in that was great. He was cocky. He was like funny. Like, so I felt like, I don't know, if Jude Law's character was a little bit more edgy, it might have pulled me along for the ride more.
The movie is in fact called Spy.
It's a spy movie.
A spy movie called Spy.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like it, and again, I hate being like, oh, if Jude Law was a better actor, because like I'm fucking not good. But like if Jude Law had like a little bit of a more edgier kind of darkness, not like Dark Jedi, but just like dark sense of humor to his like dialogue and everything that was written for him, I think it could have been more fun.
Paul, what was the missing ingredient for you?
The one thing that I thought of was that the last episode ended a little abruptly.
Yeah.
Like I kind of wanted there to be a scene where like the X-Wings like land and they're like, where the hell have you people been the last, like, we thought you were, we thought the Empire destroyed you or something. You know what I mean? Like,
we fucking shot everybody. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or like something where they were like, oh, this is At Attin. You know, where the hell are you been? And I also would have liked if one of the fighter pilots had been the guy who's in the Mandalorian and is an X-Wing pilot. I don't remember his name.
Oh, right. Carson Teva, who appeared in Ahsoka as well.
Yeah, or like oh god, the guy from Rebels that is his friend. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
No, Zeb.
Zeb, yeah. Like if him and Zeb had shown up and been like,
yeah,
what the hell's going on? Like, I thought it needed something like that, but
I'd love to see like live action Rebels.
We did. It was Ahsoka season.
Yeah,
I know, but like I love them to take that character, and you know, and like we've seen it all, but like I love to do live action and see where that goes. That could be a series that has legs.
Someone brought up a point about the response time for the X-Wing fighters. What's the planet where Din and Grogu live? I forgot what that was called. But do you remember?
Right, and they were like nowhere near there.
But the pirates were invading that, and then they pretty much
they put up a beacon and they light speed and boom it. But that's light speed. You're fucking there like before you know it.
And as opposed to At Attin, where Owl Lady makes a phone call, then they're there like 3 seconds later.
This Owl Lady was a cool character, by the way. Going back to the question from before, like I thought for sure she wasn't going to survive the one episode that she was in. But
you wanted everyone to die, Mac.
It just seemed like everything was but it seemed like she was gonna get hers, and then Jude Law let her live.
I was working under the assumption, to go back to the question, that they were in the area, and that's why they showed up so quickly.
Just like full-blown citizens on patrol. Like
but that again, they could have said that in this add-on the part that I would have been. They could have been like, "You guys are lucky we were in the neighborhood." Getting smoothies. And
I was expecting Carson Teva to be in that crew because I thought that was like the guy that pops up everywhere.
He's the rogue guy just flying around the outskirts of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Carlos had a great point, or have Jod flashbacks and connect it to something. Yes, I would have liked to have seen that, especially his relationship with the Jedi.
Connected to him doing peyote.
At Attin is just making gold credits that no one has seen since the Old Republic, but the supervisor got the Order 66 transmission. Which is it? Ooh, these are all.
Well, he didn't get the 66 transmission what he got
He was
was
aware
the
of
news report. What he got was the news that the Jedi
That are dead.
are dead. The question is, why didn't seem to know that the Republic had been replaced by the Empire?
Maybe that was beyond his programming.
I don't know.
Yes.
Again, that's a question you could figure out. So
was that a good enough reveal to you that the planet and the Great Mission was all being controlled by a robot, or did either of you want more, or were expecting more?
I didn't know why that mattered. Like, it wasn't like I don't know. Like, I didn't see it as like a big moment or a big reveal. I just thought it was like, all right,
exactly.
There's lots of droids, so okay. Like,
yeah, I had
like a giant droid though.
Yeah. But like it was like the door droid at Jabba's palace, but just in like mega form, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Now let us get back to Thanos Heisenberg's question. Do you guys want more Skeleton Crew? And let us inform our answer with that. According to the Nielsen ratings, the first 2 weeks of the Skeleton Crew had the lowest viewership ever for a Star Wars Disney Plus show. The Acolyte was the record holder before that, but this did worse than the Acolyte in terms of viewers, even though the Rotten Tomatoes score is much, much higher. Of course, the Acolyte also did get review bombed because of women, which is just so weird.
Women, racism,
women and minorities. Can't have that in Star Wars. So,
yeah.
But even that, if there was never a season 2, I would not be bothered.
Yeah, and I have a different look on this, right? Because if it's like if there wasn't a season 2, same boat. Like, but if they wanted to take another stab at Skeleton Crew with a different cast and maybe a story that was a little bit, I don't know, if I don't want to say easier to follow, or just like, I don't know, like that wasn't as rooted in real pirates, right? Like, then I might be more interested.
Paul.
I don't know. I mean, I liked the show more than you guys did, but I don't know where you go with the story.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it seems very self-contained.
It's a thing that happened in the Star Wars universe once.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, like, the people that made the show are like, oh, they had an idea for season 2 before they even finished season 1, which I really don't know where they would have gone with it.
Oh,
and my understanding,
being reintegrated into the rest of the galaxy that's a pretty major step. So seeing how the kids adjust to that,
I guess. I mean, the thing that I thought of was that it could be interesting to do kind of what Stephen King did in It, whereas you have this story about kids, and then in the second half, they're adults.
Yeah.
Like, what happens, like, to, obviously you can't do with the same.
Like, where are they now, 20 years on?
Like, kind of, not like that, but like, those 4 kids end up having like some other adventure together as adults, and like they end up running into some of the same people, like the owl lady and
well, hopefully it'd only be 3 of them because Fern would be dead. But no, just kidding.
Jesus. But you'd have, I don't know whether if you did it, do you wait 20 years for the kids to grow up, or do you do it now and do what they did with the It movies and get different adult actors to play
and
them?
It opens up with all of them attending either Fern or
you didn't like Neil or Wim
funeral for either him or what's his name's character.
Right.
See, I don't think you kill off Wim, because what you do is you have the adventure.
Jude Law's character. It'd be like a funeral for him that they all show up at.
And they're their parents' age, so Wim would obviously be played by The Rock at this point. So
yeah, duh.
That's where you go with that for
the guys who created the show said that their idea for a sequel isn't contingent on them being the same age.
Right.
Like, they don't have to do it right now before those kids grow up. Like, it could be something that they could do in like a couple of years when
Wim's like going to be a wannabe Jedi, because that was his like whole
yeah.
And KB's just going to be working for like Lobot up in
That would be amazing. So if I remember correctly, the writers of this, John Watts did the bulk of the writing with Christopher Ford, who also wrote the Spider-Man movies with him, which is weird because I think those movies are really well written. So I don't. Why did I have a problem with the writing here? Just seems odd. What is missing? That's the real mystery, not At Attin.
What ingredient is missing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's close things out with this. I mean, basically, Paul liked the show more than the rest of us, but it sounds like you didn't love it quite.
I would put it's definitely not as, I don't like it as much as The Mandalorian, which so far is still the best
Or
TV
Andor
show.
or any of those.
Okay. I think Andor is a much better made show. I found this much more fun to watch.
Huh.
I can see that because Andor was a little bit slower pacing wise.
Yeah.
And it's more serious. It's kind of like when I make
yeah.
that analogy between Civil War and The Winter Soldier. How even though The Winter Soldier is clearly a better movie, I watch Civil War more because it's just more dumb fun.
I didn't like it as much as Ahsoka. I didn't like it as much as The Acolyte.
Obi-Wan?
And I
I
like Obi-Wan a little bit. I like Obi-Wan more. I would say that like
the worst one for you then.
Well, I think it's better than the first half of Boba Fett, but not as good as the second
I
half.
feel like we got to
Boba
put
Fett.
together our list of like our order of all of the different ones and just see where this one fits in.
Even though it's not an Olympic sport. But I keep forgetting the Book of Boba Fett exists because I think I try to erase it from my memory like Rocky 5. So.
So the Street Fight Rocky?
Yes, with Tommy Gunn.
Yeah.
The Book of Boba Fett may be this series' saving grace. What's interesting is that we don't really know what's next for Star Wars. We have Andor season 2 coming this year, and then after that,
Star Wars Visions.
Well, for live action stuff,
right?
There are no hard dates for any Star Wars things after Andor. I mean, presumably the next thing would be the Mandalorian and Grogu movie sometime next year.
They're getting a movie?
Yes. Favreau is doing it, if I'm not mistaken. Thoughts on rumors of Ewan McGregor possibly coming back in Ahsoka season 2? I'm all for it. He's a great actor, great character. Hopefully he's not busy making space sashimi in this like he did for like half of Obi-Wan. But yeah, I'm all for it. They already had the flashbacks with Anakin. Let's get Obi-Wan in there too. But yeah, what do you want next, or what do you think is coming next from Star Wars? Paul, take this one.
I would like them to do another Mandalorian season before the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
I would also, obviously, none of you guys are going to agree with this. I would love to know what Boba Fett is up to, and I would like to see how that's going to connect to the movie. Not just Boba Fett, but also Fennec Shand.
Because when we last left Boba Fett, he was like the crime lord of Tatooine.
Right.
Do you
need to you could incorporate that into, I think you could incorporate that into the Mandalorian.
Okay.
Like I don't feel like the story that they've told thus far sets up a movie. Like I feel like they need to have like one more season of something. And maybe the second season of Ahsoka, which they're apparently going to be filming very soon, is going to do that.
The second season of Ahsoka coming?
Nobody
they haven't
knows.
said,
there's no dates for anything after.
Right on the hill. Switch to.
They did just announce that the guy who played the Mountain. No, not the guy who played the Mountain. The
Hound.
The Hound from
Balin's
Game of
Skull.
Thrones is going to play take over Balin's Skull.
Which made me think well, they better have more chicken scenes in it now.
The Hound, you said, right? Not the Mountain.
The Hound.
Right.
Yes.
The Hound.
He was a good actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. which is good because like where they left Balin Skull, it was really
One of the
interesting, and I
most
really wanted to know what the hell was
interesting
going on with
pieces
him.
of the Star Wars world so far.
Yeah,
I agree.
so
And
I'm glad they're doing that. Although I normally don't like when they recast things, but
Yeah, but I mean,
people die. Ray Stevenson was great in that role, and
right,
I think Mac
right,
is right in that because that's such an interesting part of where they're going next that you can't just sweep that character under the rug. You kind of
right. But like, there was a thing this week where people were talking about them Marvel recasting T'Challa as Black Panther,
right.
and I was like, no, he's dead. You've said he's dead. Don't you could have somebody else become the Black Panther, but it shouldn't take over that character. And then there were other rumors that said that, no, that's not what they're doing. What they're talking about is casting somebody to be the adult version of the kid that got introduced in the second Black Panther, and he becomes the Black Panther, taking over
Paul,
for Shuri.
Before we have Mac answer the last question, you just gave me an idea for a great tangent. I think it was 2 weeks ago we talked about what if,
yes,
two things for the MCU. What if T'Challa didn't die, and what if Kang wasn't a sexual abuser? Because the whole MCU got really messed up because of those two events, both tragic in different ways, but they really just had to throw out all the plans and just come up with something new.
I say they just go back to my one-off idea, which was I'd love to see the what if the Guardians fought Iron Man.
Okay.
That was like my one, like after watching the first season, after you guys had the what if thing the other day, I was like, oh yeah, I'll watch that. And that's like I'd love to see like Guardians, especially like what would Rocket do with all Tony Stark's like electronics?
Although his tech is better, Rocket's, isn't it?
It's also like woven together from like garbageware, right? Like he just he hacks everything together. So I don't know. I thought that would be
right. Cool. Here's my idea of how you solve the Kang problem. I don't know in what movie somebody says, whatever happened with that Kang guy? And then you go to a montage of some character going around killing all the Kang variants.
It's Deadpool.
Maybe Deadpool. Kind of like that scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh yeah, at the end.
At the end where they go and they go and they beat up all the people who criticize them.
That's one of my favorite scenes in a movie of all time.
Wasn't one of the kids like Magnolia fan?
Yeah, are you Magnolia fan 6'9"? What are like?
Yeah, and one of them was like a priest, and So
and I love that when they attack the businessman who's like on a call and putting him on hold, but then they just beat him with the phone.
Yeah, that's such a great scene. I love that.
I love that scene.
Yeah. So you get maybe you get Deadpool to do that.
So it's Paul Rudd as Ant-Man talking to Deadpool. Like, whatever happened with that? And it's a kind of flashback of Deadpool going around and doing all the dirty work.
Right, because he's got that like wristwatch thing you can do that with. So like him and Loki do it. Like
that'd be hilarious.
Jay and Silent Loki.
So Paul, Carlos likes your idea. He says, I like Paul's idea. And the reason would be because Bad Batch introduced Omega. I still have not finished the last season of Bad Batch, which would be Boba's sister, and would like to see if they know about each other. That is suddenly more interesting. I'd like to see if Omega has
in live action.
What? I don't even know what Omega is.
Oh,
she's another clone, like the ultimate clone.
Okay.
Of the Fett family. Is that even their last name?
They're Italian.
Fett of the Upper East Side Fets.
Jimmy Fett.
They shortened it when they came over.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the thing I would like to see next is more Mandalorian stuff. And I mean Mandalorian, not Din Djarin. I want to see what happens to their, I guess, are they a race? Are they a lifestyle now at this point? I don't know. Like
it's a choice.
It's a choice. Like, because we have, I love the character of Bo-Katan, and what she went through from Clone Wars and Rebels on. People forget that, during Clone Wars, when she was kind of an asshole, and her sister was getting killed. She was supposed to be like a young teen at that point, if I'm not mistaken. And seeing her whole trauma of, getting her family killed, getting most of her race wiped out. I'd like to see how they build the Mandalorians back up as a species instead of, these people that hide in random caves all over the universe. I'd like to see more of that. Definitely Ahsoka season 2, which I hope they just rename Rebels at this point, because that's really what I'm all about.
What do you think we're going to see from Andor?
That's a good question. I mean,
I gotta go back and rewatch that. I don't even remember how it ended.
Well, it ended with
I mean, I know how he ends.
he steals the plans for the Death Star, and then he blows up, making up with what was her name in Rogue One? Jane Erso, but with her accent. I'm like,
Jane Erso.
I'm like, your name is Jane Asshole? What? Like,
it ended with the mom his mom dies, and then there's like a rebellion on that
looking
planet.
For his sister or something. He's got that whole backstory side mission where he's looking for his abducted sister, which is very Luke and Leia, but still.
And then weird. Kellen's Skarsgård, or which Skarsgård is in it? Is it Peter? I don't know. They're all interchangeable now. But Daddy Skarsgård, he becomes Will Hunting's professor.
Right.
And that's how we got the multiverse through math.
All right. Done.
So I think
that was a tangent.
Yeah. We went all over the place on that one. But yeah, Skeleton Crew, I think we're happy to be done with it, even though Paul liked it the most. It's still his second least favorite Star Wars series.
I didn't know I didn't need it. That's my soundbite.
Yeah. I mean, it was there. It was something to watch every week.
Something new. I mean, A for effort, right? Say they tried to do something new. It wasn't for me. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm left with a feeling of disappointment because of all the talent involved in this, that I was expecting something better and did not get it.
Yep.
And that makes me sad. I want it to be good. I'm happy that my friends like it, that really enjoyed it. Somebody called the finale a perfect ending, which I'm like, what? Like, I mean, between that and the Rotten Tomatoes scores, I'm like, I don't know that we're watching the same show. Like, in my head, this is like
that it ended, if you want to call it a perfect ending.
I mean, I didn't hate it.
No, but it was just like I said, I didn't know that I didn't need to waste any time watching it. Like, it was just one of those shows where like,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah. To me, it's like going to it's like having a mediocre meal at a TGI Fridays. It's not offensive, but it's,
But at least he got out.
Yeah. Yes, that should be on like a box sticker somewhere.
Now, ironically, I want nothing more than TGI Fridays, but
oh, that tangent. Somebody was recommending this local fajita restaurant, which is the same. They're saying
somebody ended up recommending it's local. You might have heard of it. It's called TGI Fridays.
It's like that, but more expensive, and it has an ethnic name. But I guarantee you, it's like the same shit as fajitas at Chili's. But
yeah,
for some people, this is, well, I guess for some people in Henderson, Nevada, this is the ultimate place. But anyway, let us put a bow in this episode, guys. Thanks for hanging out. If you enjoyed,
sorry I was late.
Oh, good, man. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit up my Patreon for a chance to win a Steam code. Check out Max products at Turtle Beach, and Paul's website. Links to them are in the video description below. Hope you'll join us next week. Paul and I will be joined by our friend Ray Carcillo to talk about 2025 movies we're looking forward to, and come back in 2 weeks where the three of us will be talking about 2025 TV series that we're excited for. Super excited for all of this. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time on RPadTV. Bye.